The thing is, with negative clients, if you can turn it around, they might be your client forever and one of the best clients that you've ever had.
Well, step one, send all of your negative clients to Drea because she's got this all figured out. I would much rather hear from a client the things that they are not loving and coming back to me and giving me the chance to do something differently than for them to leave and never say something and never come back again. Hello, all my friends, and welcome back to the Successful Stylist Academy podcast. I'm your host, Ambrosia, and I'm here with Drea today. Welcome to season 5, my friends, a whole new era. This season, we are actually going to be hanging out with our own community and our containers. As you guys know, we offer group coaching, and we've been doing this for several years, and we love to hear from your voices. So these are all questions that are coming directly from our container. But I want to actually invite you guys, if you have a question or a comment or even a topic that you want to hear us talk more about, leave that in our reviews on podcast reviews. Because number one, we love hearing from you, first of all. And number two, we also really love to grow and expand this community. And your voice is a lot more important than you may realize. So I enjoy reading your reviews. I read through each one of them. And I also want to thank you in advance. Drea, how's it going, girl?
I cannot believe this is season 5. That is so crazy.
It makes me feel so old.
But I mean, thank you to all of you guys who have been hanging out with us for like all of these seasons. And to those of you who are joining us maybe for the first time or just chimed in last season, welcome. And we're super glad that you're here. And, you know, just exactly like Ambrosia said, we want to hear from you. Like, your voice is so important. It helps us to do better, be better, all of those things. And we know what we know, and we know our issues and what we need. So we would love to hear from you.
Which absolutely. Are none. We have no issues whatsoever.
No issues. We just got it all together.
Today, we're actually talking about how to handle negative clients. And this was in our recent container, by the way, for Successful Hairstylist. I'll just go ahead and throw it out there that we're going to drop the waitlist in there for the next time that we open it up, and you can learn more about that. This is something we're really passionate about. You know, I know we're passionate about a lot of things, but really just dialing in your business and how to make it make sense for you. So that way you have an exit strategy, you have a growth plan, you have a way to be able to have a higher glass ceiling that continues to grow. The last thing you want is to hit a glass ceiling where you have to be operating at 100% in order to make money for your business. So this is what we're here for. Negative clients, Drea. Oh my gosh. It is a reality in our industry. And how do you handle it?
I mean, such a fun, positive to start with, right? I mean,
such a good kickoff.
Yeah, this is great. No, I really love this topic because I love it because it does fit my personality, and I'll go into that, but also because we're here to have the hard conversations, and we want you to have the tools that you need for the things that aren't fun. Like, we know how to do the fun things and be successful and enjoy that. But what about the things that, like, even when we don't know someone's going to be negative and they're sitting in our chair or something previously happened, maybe we're blindsided, and we just want to share some of like our experience and the things that have really, really been successful for us so that you can, you know, share in that success when you're not, when you're kind of placed in those situations that aren't the most fun part of what we do. So the first thing I do, and I would say, is know yourself, because we all have different personalities, and I feel like I thrive in this area. Like, I get some like morbid joy out of like trying to like do the beauty from ashes thing and like pull the silver lining and switch a negative to a positive. Like, I thrive off of that challenge. So this is like lucky for me in these kind of instances. But yeah, I mean, I'm super optimistic. I'm definitely going to see the best in things. I'm going to immediately be like, oh, this is about you. This isn't about me. And then try to go from there, and then figure out maybe where I need to also sweep my side of the street. But know yourself. I mean, if you're someone that tends to be a little bit pessimistic, or if you're somebody that could be a little bit more negative, then you're going to want to be more aware and just a little more cautious about your engagement when you are having to deal with negative clients, because you don't want that to end in chaos or in a bad way. And the thing is, with negative clients, if you can turn it around, they might be your client forever and one of the best clients that you've ever had. They also might not be your client, but they're also not going to put that negative review if you have made it right and you have handled it in a way. And you get to walk away and you get to sleep good and not have a sick stomach and not, feel like, oh, that's not who I want to be. That's not who I want to show up as.
Yeah.
So I feel like know yourself. One of the big things that I like to say when you're dealing and actually having a conversation, whether it's a text conversation or an in-person conversation, is pause, breathe, speak, listen, and repeat. Right? So pause, breathe, speak, listen, and repeat. And the reason I say that is because our emotions start to engage immediately. Maybe we get on the defensive. Maybe they are dead wrong. So I like to use this as I engage, because as my emotions start to arise, I get to pause. I get to take a breath. And while that's happening, it allows me to process what they're saying. It allows me to try to detach from like my heightened emotions. And then I get to really think about what I'm going to say before I say it and make sure that that is a representation of who I want to be when I open my mouth. and then after that, instead of thinking what I'm going to say next, I actually take a chance to listen to their response and what they have to say. And then I repeat the pause, breathe, speak, and then listen. The other thing I want to pair with that is my motto is it's better to be kind than to be right. Because sometimes it's just a matter of perception is reality, and this was their experience, and this is what they think and feel. And regardless of facts, that is their truth right now.
Yeah.
And yours may not be the same, and that's okay.
That's a good one.
So for me, it's better to be kind than to be right. Like, I can swallow that ego and that pride, especially if I can do it in a way that's allowing me to not be a doormat and keep my healthy boundaries intact. And it gives me the opportunity to make it right and to start off in a good place when engaging with these clients. So I do have more, but I want to know how you start this very fun process, Ambrosia.
Well, step one, send all of your negative clients to Drea because she's got this all figured out. I'm just kidding. I mean, it is an opportunity, and that's just the way we kind of have to look at it. Typically, whenever I have somebody who is getting kind of like upset or riled, then I do tend to take a step back. And so, like those really cheesy quotes, those things that you can buy at like Home Goods or some other like place, those little sayings, stay calm. Stay calm and carry on. I'm just kidding. No, maintaining your exposure just to be calm. Like, you can be responsible for yourself. Let them be responsible for themselves. If they're losing their ish, then that is not the time for you to match their energy. So if you can stay calm, it will help you be more clear, and it will also help you respond more professionally. And then you can actually active listen when you are staying calm. So internally, I'm saying to myself, like, okay, stay calm, be quiet. Like what you were saying, Dre, I like that, just like being still for a moment. And in that process, just actively listen. What that actually means is that you're hearing their concerns and you're actually helping them validate. Like, you want to validate their feelings, even if it's completely wrong for you and you're like, oh my gosh, she's crazy. Like, it's very important that you do this step, because if they're trying to get this stuff out of them, usually by the time that elevation sets, then the decline happens where they start to like immediately get embarrassed and just realize like, oops, I may have taken that too far. So by you actively listening, and it actually shows empathy and it diffuses any kind of tension. So automatically, by just zipping the lip and staying calm, listening to them, that's all you have to do. You don't have to say a thing. Then you're actually showing empathy. So the next step after that is you're going to put yourself in their shoes. So again, you still haven't even opened your mouth yet. You're going to put yourself in their shoes and you're going to look at things through their perspective, no matter how hard it is. You're going to reach down inside and you're going to play this active role playing thing where you're like, I'm going to pretend to be this person for a moment. You're going to acknowledge their feelings. And this helps you actually build rapport, believe it or not. And that leads back to what Drea was saying earlier, where you could actually end up getting a really great client out of this. Kind of make a game out of this in a kind of twisted way. Once you've been able to establish that piece, then before you open your mouth, you want to make sure that you're avoiding any kind of defensiveness whatsoever. Like, do not defend yourself. That is the wrong thing to do. So if you refrain from being defensive, you're not creating this issue that it now is like you versus me. So the last thing you want to do is create even more of a wall that says like, I'm on this side and you're on this side. Because I promise you that no matter how much you try to argue with someone, no matter how much you try to defend yourself, no matter how much you want to justify it, unfortunately, they are going to be right in the critic's eyes. And the reason why is like, if they go on and they actually take that further and they write a review, people are still going to see that as their point of view. If they go to their friends and their family and anyone else and they tell them their side of the story, no matter how much they may be in the wrong in your eyes, I promise you, they are going to look at their story as the truth. So that's why it's so important to diffuse it and avoid any defensiveness. And then I guess I'll leave you guys with this one little piece. And we haven't, like, keep in mind, we haven't even opened up our mouth yet, is to seek solutions. So I want you to challenge you to find a way in your head, like as you're listening through all this. And mind you, like, think about how fast our brain works. It works so fast that we don't even realize how fast it's working. So before you open your mouth, like, you have done all this stuff probably in like 0.5 seconds. But what's really important is that when you do open your mouth, you actually start seeking some solutions. So you want to propose like some way that you can diffuse this or find some actionable steps. And so this is your way of committing to resolving this issue. And I'm going to let Drea speak for a moment, and then we're actually going to talk about how you find those solutions.
So good. The listening piece, I have, active listening, like really engage in active listening while this is happening, because hearing and listening are two completely different things. Like, you can hear anything, like you can hear the neighbors doing their yard work, you can hear, but you kind of tune it out. Like, it's like outside noise. And a lot of times, I don't know about you guys, I'm a little bit better now about this, but when you're having an argument or a disagreement, or you're engaging in a way that I really like to think as like proactive communication, but it feels like conflict, especially if you're someone who really does not like confrontation, then this is like, you're sweaty, you're like ill, like, it's just all your body's reacting to this entire, engagement that you're having. I would just say really practice that active listening, because a lot of times just, Ambrosia, you're not even saying anything yet. You're literally just allowing them to vent. You're allowing them to say what they need to say. And a lot of times the main thing that people need first is to feel seen and heard, to feel understood, and to feel like you care enough to make it right. Like, those are the things I think usually when people are negative or unhappy are what they're looking for. So practicing that active listening is listening to what they have to say, putting yourself in their shoes and processing what they have to say, and then already trying to work towards a solution. So that is the difference between active listening and just hearing something. So I think that is really, really important, because it gives us so much insight into what the root of the issue actually is. And sometimes, like, thinking of what are these like non-verbal cues they're even giving, like how they're touching their hair, how they're saying something, because a lot of times people are not feeling seen and heard, and they're using anger in place of what the real issue is, because it's just easier that way than to say, you made me feel like this. My feelings are hurt. I didn't think that you listened to me with this. Like, that's too vulnerable for a lot of people. So instead of actually saying what the issue is, it's easier for them just to be negative or for them to be upset about it. So when you're listening to them, it gives you more insight if there's like something else that maybe has been triggered along the way. The next thing that I like to mention is it might be your work, something you worked hard on. You felt like you did that great consultation. Oh my gosh, your hair looks almost exactly like the picture. I mean,
Yeah.
you get put in these places that are really, really difficult sometimes. So I want to encourage you to try your best to not take it personal, because this is their experience. It can be something that they're not saying. Even just in life, like how many times do we mistake arrogance for insecurity? And it's just covering it up, It's just
Dang.
pride or hurt
Bumper
feeling.
sticker quote.
Yeah.
That's good.
I'll be
I haven't
here.
said that for a
I'll
while.
be here all day. Try not to take it personal, because then our emotions don't have to get wrapped up. And when we don't take it personal, it's easier for us to find a solution in the process when our emotions aren't attached to us feeling attacked and then having to feel defensive. And the last thing, I know Ambrosia is going to share, like really moving into that solution part of it. So I would say the words we use. The words we use are so huge. So if you were to say so-and-so, use their name, because supposedly in any language, when you use someone's name, it's almost the sweetest thing that we could hear back to us. So really saying their name first, and then maybe repeating back to them part of what they said and saying, I understand that they feel understood. You said you understand them, and people are looking to feel understood. I'm sorry that whatever part is yours that you can say, or even if it is a little more generic, that you weren't happy with this, or this got overlooked. Like, if there's not really something that you can own because it's not real, because you didn't do it, then at least like, I'm sorry that this happened this way or whatever. So there is like acknowledgement and some type of apology or responsibility, whatever that looks like for that. And then going into, what could I do today to fix this? Like, how can I make this right? That allows you to take the pressure off of yourself of trying to guess what they want you to do. And you get to hear it straight from them, and you kind of put that back onto them. So you've said all of these things that you needed to say. I understand, I apologize, and what could I do to make it right? And then you get to move from there and be solution oriented. So I have a little bit more, but I really want to hear your solutions for this process, Ambrosia.
Well, it's really interesting. I feel like, Drea, you just answering it in that way, where you're taking ownership and you're empathizing and you are addressing that piece and like, how can I make this right for you? I feel like that it kind of sums things up in a way, right? Like we don't have to have a long drawn out conversation. As a matter of fact, I feel like the less we say, the better. I think it's more important to listen than to speak. I think it's more important to show that you really want to find a solution for this. I think it's important also that you apologize for anything that may have upset that person, even if it was intended or not, because the point of an apology is not about you. It's to make the other person feel better and make it about them. Yeah. So, and obviously, as we're talking about this, we're assuming that there's an escalated situation, that the rug got pulled from under you, right? So there are some situations where, like, if I were to go back to this group coaching session that inspired this conversation to begin with, it was more or less about negative Nancy that sits in your chair, and it just starts out with negative stuff from the very beginning. So a lot of times what I'll do is I almost just I'll listen. I'll pause. I won't say anything. I'll let them get it out of their system. And then I'll say, okay, yeah, I understand what you're talking about, or I can see what you're talking about there. So let's talk about what are things that are working? What are you liking about your hair? What are parts that you're really enjoying? Especially if they're coming back to you. I want to prompt this in you guys. I think it's really important that if a client sits down and starting out negatively, we have to remember that they're coming back to us. So I would much rather hear from a client the things that they are not loving and coming back to me and giving me the chance to do something differently, then for them to leave and never say something and never come back again, because that is a majority of people. They're just going to do that, and you'll never know. After saying all that, let's pretend that the wheels went off the bus and it's just like you just don't even know what happened. So I think it's important to start with like just setting some expectations, right? Like just be really clear in your way of communicating. Keep it short and sweet and simple, just like what Drea uncovered with you guys. So you just want to address their concerns. And then you want to come up with a resolution, right? So start out by apologizing in a professional way. Just be sincere. Be genuine. Avoid placing blame. Focus on the resolution instead. Just say something along the lines of, I'm sorry you feel that way, or I appreciate. If you can't say sorry necessarily, then you can say, I really appreciate you I really appreciate you addressing this, or I really appreciate you telling me about this, or thank you for pointing this out to me. Things along those lines. Like just keep it as neutral as you possibly can. If you have a hard time with understanding where they're coming from, and if you feel like there needs to be a plan of attack, because there can be so many different situations, right? Maybe they feel like the color wasn't quite right. Maybe the cut's not feeling good. Maybe they're just having a moment or whatever. That would be maybe a good time to record it, like take document of it. So basically, if there are some steps that need to be taken, it would be a good idea to grab your color consultation form, for instance, and you can write out some of the things like, okay, now we know this part isn't feeling good for you. Like pretend that this is in the beginning of the consultation, maybe. It doesn't always have to be at the very end, right? Or if it's at the end of your service, then you can still do the same process. But start writing that piece out so that in the future, like that you're not just addressing it, but you're making note of it so that they know for the future, like, I told you that I don't like really ashy tones and this looks green to me. And then you can say, I'm going to write this down right now because I want to make sure that this color is never in our formulation again. The good news is I am happy and able to get this out right away. And then the last thing I would say, like this would be like kind of worst case scenario, I suppose, is I would involve a third party. If you feel like you can't reach a good solution together, especially if somebody's coming in for an adjustment, or if you call it a redo, make sure you bring another person in. Just say, this is so-and-so, and she's my colleague, or she's my mentor, she's my manager, whatever. And I'm just bringing her in so that way she can hear things in case I don't hear them correctly. And I want to get a second set of eyes on this. So that also helps. Like sometimes doing that helps the person kind of be a little bit more better behaved. I hate to say that, but it's kind of true. And then I guess I said that was worst case, but absolute worst case scenario, if that person, you're not able to diffuse it and they want their money back, please give them their money back happily and be graciously and thank them. And tell them, you would love to take care of them again in the future if they choose to come back. And if they want a referral, you're happy to give it to them. You just want them to be happy with their hair, because really you do, right? I mean, like, let's be honest. Absolute last thing would be make sure that you learn from that feedback. Make sure that you take all that information and don't make it about them. Make it about like somewhere in there, I failed communication, or I failed to talk about like what their version of ash meant. So that's what I would say. Wrap it up in a pretty little bow, but really at the end of the day, keep it short, concise, simple, be communicative in a very loving, approachable way. Document it if you have to, bring in a third party if you really need to, but most of all, learn from it. So Drea, you get the floor now.
Oh no, I love those tools. Like so many great tips and options for sure. And I wrote down, give the people what they want. And let me say what I mean by that, because we don't mean by any means why we're saying this, that your healthy boundaries do not stay intact during this process. Like you do not become a doormat, but it's just choosing to be clear, but to be kind in the process. And sometimes I mean, Ambrosia talked about like in the coaching, it wasn't even about this like worst case scenario, but we did want to address that. But sometimes even with like social unrest and what's happening in the world and the news and clients will come and sit and just be heavy with it. And not that they're really heavy with it. And that might be the only thing that they want to talk about. But if we just absorb that all day long, oh man, like we go home just feeling like ick, And so that is something that I don't really like to do in my chair. And there are so many negative things in the world that we could focus on. But like, I'm an empath. Like, I will not survive if that is what I just continue to receive. So it can be little things like, people gossiping or people talking about the negative things that are really happening. And so I like to kind of find a silver lining in that, or give them their time to say what they need to say and say, oh, I know like that is something so hard, or that is so sad, or that is very, very heartbreaking. One thing though that I did hear, and I like to share a positive story with them and then maybe engage in that. And hopefully they want to like have a little bit more of that conversation going on. Or if it's something like I will struggle with like complaining or this is going wrong, because it's easy just to jump in and have these negative conversations. It's easy to just jump in to gossip, but then you just feel like not good afterwards. So a lot of times I'll say, oh, I was feeling like this. And I ended up having to like literally sit down and write out everything I was grateful for. And it was a long list, and that was something that really helped me. And so I kind of like to try to shift the conversation a little bit when it's someone in my chair that is just maybe a heavier negative person that tends to like be a little bit more on the pessimistic side. Like, these are things that we can do to shift that, because I want people to walk away feeling lighter when they leave their time with me. I want them to feel lighter when they leave my chair. And one of the things about us being in the service industry is that we are here to serve people. We're here to serve our clients. And that's something that I don't like to lose sight of. The very last thing I have to say is sometimes if the situation has escalated, if it is a client that is negative to the point of it being abusive or emotionally draining to the point of your mental health, then that is where you do get to say, I don't think that this is a good fit. I really enjoy this and this. Goodbye.
I don't do.
Yes. Like I don't think I can, make you happy in the way that you need. And I really will miss this and this about you, but I think it would be better if, and you offer them a referral, or, if it comes down to something where they're asking for their money back, I also am like, please take all your money back. Please go. Please don't let the door hit you on the butt on the way out. No. But, I'm like, that money is not worth it. But if you're someone who's like, I spent my time, I'm not wrong, whatever, you could say, I understand what you said. You could do all of the solution things and then say, let me look at my cost of goods for your hair service and the time I spent. Would it be okay if I get back to you by tomorrow and let you know what I can do in that area? And here are some other solutions that I would be happy to offer you. So I also think it's okay to keep those healthy boundaries, to stand your ground, and to let clients go that aren't a good fit, that aren't healthy. Like, life is short. Most of us are here because we do what we love, and you don't need to go to bed sick to your stomach. You don't need to wake up with a headache because you know who's going to be sitting in your chair that day. So I do refuse to operate that way. But these are all of the things that I do first. And then that is like the last thing I will do if none of those things are going to work. And I get to be at peace with that.
Oh, preach it to the world, Drea. That is so true. I mean, you even was saying a second ago that like people are going through a lot right now, but we are part of those people. So it's like, yes, you can take on only a certain amount, just like everyone else can. We're not meant to be superhuman. The world is changing, especially in the world of service. I think it's just like always be the best version of yourself that you can possibly be. It always comes back twofold. I've never, ever regretted being overly kind to people, but also letting them go politely too. Because there's always this piece of integrity. And if you let people go, you're doing it because you're preserving yourself, so that way you could give yourself fully to someone else who really wants to be in your chair, who really wants to spend time with you.
Good.
And that like feeds back into the joy of what we love doing. When you start to compromise those, that's when it depletes you, and then you don't love what you do anymore. And then you exit the industry or you seek something else. And so as long as you remain true to those pieces and you're proud of yourself for doing it, then that is always going to be a road for greater success in general. So we just want to echo the words that we say so many times, but we really truly want to live it. We want to encourage you to dream big, set goals, and take action. We're here for you guys. Please join our next container. And if anything, if you can't join right this second, that's okay. We're doing this several times a year. We love doing this. We want to help you thrive in your business, and we want to help you feel like you are supported all this way. So join the container. We will see you guys very, very soon. And on that note, we're going to be talking about boundaries, which I think is going to coincide with this conversation very nicely in a couple of episodes. So we will see you guys next week.